So if you are here for Meet the Book, a conversation with Audrey Burt Saha, then you are in the right place. And we're glad to have you here. Before we start, my name is Malie. I've met most of you, I think. Malie Bain, Next Gen Story, Custom Publishing. I am on Stillalup, which is the Nemo name for Departure Bay in Nanaimo on Vancouver Island. And this is a photo from approximately 100 years ago, for those who know this area, looking over towards what is now a ferry terminal. Welcome us all, which we've kind of started already. We're going to do some introductions, not just of Audrey and I actually want to introduce those in the room. We'll talk a bit about Audrey, person, the author. Also want you to meet this book, Living in Tandem. So we'll dive into the book a bit. I wanted to start with a bit about sort of why people publish in general. You've just talked about a few of those things. This is one quote that I thought really resonates for me in general, but especially for Audrey. There comes a point in your life when you need to stop reading other people's books and write your own. So if that was good enough for Albert, it's good enough for some of us. When I talk to folks doing this work, I hear a lot of different things. We'll hear more about Audrey's in a second. Sometimes folks want to publish to honor special memories, sometimes to preserve the past, to kind of hold on to what's there. I think learning about yourself, I think, Rosemary, you just spoke to that. Inspiring others. I think many of us have that undercurrent, inspiring our children or grandchildren. And then there's, if not you, who, the sense of responsibility. If you don't birth this book, no one else will be able to. And I think, Rosemary, you really mentioned that in the way that you said your words too, right? This is your life story. Only you can write it. So despite all of that, here's my stat. You've probably seen it before if you've worked with me, but 81% of people say they want to publish a book and only 11% end up doing so. And I'll share a bit more of some tips at the end to help you moving along that process. But Audrey is one of those 11%. So we're glad to have her here. A little bit of an introduction to Audrey. So Audrey is the founder of Soutien Autism Support, SOS. She is the founder of the Autism Awareness Run. She received Canada's Volunteer Award in 2018. She's run not just one, but actually 9 marathons. Proud mother of 2 children, of which she will speak more, and she is married to her high school sweetheart. So this is Audrey. As she entered the publishing cohort, the book publishing cohort, I asked her a question. I asked her, what holds you back? This is what she said. The feeling that I am not worthy of being an author, not feeling supported, having too many stories and not knowing where to begin. So that's where she thought she was a year and a half ago, and here she is as an author. First question I want to ask you, Audrey, is why did you publish this book?
Well, I love the concept of legacy, leaving my children with my story. And so I thought if I wrote it down, it would be clear. But Malie didn't like my answer. So she's like, no, you really have to hone in on that. And in so many ways, it became my daughter. I thought if I could tell the story to my 21-year-old daughter, then anybody else could handle the story that I was writing in the book. And I do have a story to tell. I have lots of golden nuggets to share. And it was just festering in me. And I just knew one day that the book had to be birthed, and being part of the cohort helped me to do it as authentically as possible, because it's one thing to be at home and to write, and it's a whole other different, if you allow me say, beast to then, and it depends, like if you're going to put it out into the world. This book was published for anyone to read. So I had to wrestle with the vulnerability of critics, what I perceive to be critics. That was a gift to myself, was to really work on that. And then once I worked through that with my cohort who supported me, we actually had lots of tears, and we really supported one another, and we gave each other the courage we didn't know we had.
I was going to ask you what kept you going. So the cohort and the community kept you going, but what else kept you going in the really challenging parts of the process of writing and publishing?
I just commit. This is really what I want to do. It's important to me. I'm very good at visualizing. So I started to put it together so I could visualize it, the pictures I was going to use, the cover of the book. I love the creative process, not just of writing, but even coming up with the title. So all those little things together kept me going.
Yeah. And it's interesting. You named the vulnerability piece a minute ago. Yeah. Do you want to talk a bit more about writing about the more vulnerable parts of your story?
If you're going to write the book, you have to be authentic to yourself. And that doesn't mean you have to do full disclosure. It's just, it's what resonates to you. It's not protecting someone else or pretending that never happened. It's really what's authentic to the story. One of you said you were ghostwriting, authentic to that person you're honoring, and it's scary. But I think in my optic, I think that's why a lot of people don't publish, is because they love the process of writing and telling the stories, but then they don't want anybody coming back to them. That's a whole other conversation for, when people get later on in the process, but I have gone to the other side now. My book's been out since March. So that's also a very interesting part of it.
And you just said you went to the other side and you faced the critics. You've put the book out there.
What I told Malie the other day is what are the things you don't expect. And what I didn't expect was the sense of freedom that it would give me. And in the end, I didn't write a book to sell books because, as we spoke to, Malie has someone in marketing. If you publish a book because you think you're going to make money or notoriety or get attention from other people, it's not really the reason. But when I published the book, I didn't realize that the biggest gift it would be is to myself. I dealt with a lot of things emotionally beforehand, but once the book came out, there's some really, beautiful stories I could share of what people got out of it and shared with me. And I even mentioned her in Brené Brown in my book, and the idea of shame. We carry other people's shame. We all have ancestral trauma. And actually, in writing the book, I was released of my ancestral trauma. And I was able also to break toxic relationships that weren't serving me anymore. And that's not what I set out to do.
Beautiful. So unexpected, but beautiful gifts nonetheless. And you referenced for a minute that people did write back to you. What did they say to you?
I did have some people contact me who had read the book. What people really liked about my book is the way I wrote it. I wrote very small chapters. So average chapter is 3 pages. And within every chapter, there is a story. There's the beginning, there's the middle, and there's the end. My idea was I didn't want my book to be for the quote unquote reader, the person who reads a book a week. I wanted my book to be accessible, and those who consider themselves non-readers to still want to pick it up because I wrote this book, because they know me, or they know, they're interested in the topics that I include in the book. And so a lot of people wrote, I like the way you wrote it. I love the short chapters. It made me, okay, one more chapter. And so people who are not quote unquote typical readers were able to read the book within 2 days. And they felt a great sense of pride in that.
I was curious. I mean, you're talking a lot about learning about the process. I don't know if you can name, what did you learn about yourself in doing this?
That I could do hard things, that I could really, when I put my mind to do really hard things. The people I thought that would help me, this is a tricky one. And Malie and I had spoken about, when it comes to editing, that was like, get some friends to read it. And, unfortunately, I had one friend out of 10 read it and give feedback, but that's okay. I mean, everybody's busy and whatnot. And I think the people involved, whether you're writing it for yourself or to honor your loved ones, it's really that you be excited about your own project. And I woke up every day excited about my project, because at the end of the day, and my husband even said this to me, he said, Audrey, you did what you set out to do. You wrote a book. He says to me, you don't even have to sell one book. And I was like, but that's not why I wrote. Okay. But he was right. And for the first time in my life, that really resonated with me.
As yours has done. That's a good way of summarizing it. And Susan's just written a note to the group that I'll just read aloud that says, sounds like you really hit the universal themes that are so important to successful memoir. Well done and congratulations. And well said, Susan. Here is the book on my little screen. So this is the front, and here is the back with Audrey and the blurb bio. It's available on Amazon and anywhere else that you buy books as well. So in terms of what's inside the book, 232 pages, no small feat, true stories, reflections, letters, poetry, and photos. I put this, you will laugh, you will cry, and you will be inspired. So there's a few different parts. There's 3 parts, and I thought I'd just give Audrey, in her introduction, gives us a bit of an overview of those 3 parts. So the first part is called Figuring Out How to Be a Special Needs Mom. This part is about our autism journey, beginning with the diagnosis, moving towards figuring out how to parent Kian. It's also about my transitioning from mom, private life, to autism activist. And part 2 is called The Middle, Feels Like a Fight. In this part, I share stories about the highs and lows we experience in our day-to-day lives, sprinkled with incredible accomplishments and wins section. And then the third is Awakening to Peace and Harmony, and is the section from which the title emerges. This section is all about rethinking and reimagining our future, now guided by the desire to live in peace and harmony. I have a new vision for Kian's future, and it all has to do with living in harmony with one another. So that's the overall flow of the book. And this is where I was hoping we could move to an author reading. Audrey and I both agreed for sure on the first piece that she would read. So I think we'll start there with the dance, if you have it with you, Audrey.
I just have to figure out what page it's on.
It's on 65.
There are days I wake up in a bad mood with no specific reason as to why. On one particular occasion, I was getting mad at myself for being this way as I scurried around the house doing dishes, laundry, and preparing Keen's breakfast. I started to question myself. What the hell is my problem? Why am I in such a bad mood when I slept so well? I didn't go to bed angry. I'm not sick. I thought moving around to get more things done would help me to feel accomplished, but it made me more aggravated. Then I stopped everything I was doing and I took a deep breath. I thought to myself, if I don't change my mood, I will be miserable for the rest of the day. Breathe. What can I do to change my state of mind? Then it came to me. The answer was to move, sweat, run, get the blood in my body circulating. Although I didn't feel like working out because of my long to-do list, I needed to get out of this funk. I changed into my workout clothes and headed downstairs to my home gym. I scrolled Spotify and landed on one of my favorite artists, Macklemore. You know I'm back, like I never left. Another sprint, another step. The words could not have been more perfect. While I was getting my shoes on, Kian appeared from what we call his light room. Before I continue with my morning, let me tell you about Kian's room. In the basement, we have 2 storage rooms. One is quite large and houses a mama bear office, the furnace, the water heater, and Christmas decorations. The other is a quarter of the size, and we call it Kian's room. It has shelves on every wall and reminds me of a youth hostel. On the floor, we have stacked sleeping bags, blankets, pillows to create a soft landing spot for him. The small space gives a sense of being cocooned. Kian often goes there after school to unwind from his day. It is similar to snoozeland rooms they have in many special needs schools, which are created to calm people. One of its features is different colored lighting, similar to what you find in a spa. We installed a string of LED lights in Kian's room that would provide the same effect, changing colors from blue to green, yellow, and orange. There are different settings depending on one's mood. The room is a huge success, and if we are lucky enough, most people aren't, we are invited in for a little snuggle. That morning, Kian stood outside of his room, and with his eyes closed and his fingers in both ears, he was humming. Because he cannot speak to me, I like to connect with him through touch. I advanced slowly so that I didn't startle him and gently wrapped my arms around him for a hug. Next thing I knew, his arms were around me. There was a gentle swaying from side to side as though we were slow dancing. Then I realized, hey, we are. Instead of being concerned about getting my workout done, I made the conscious decision to be all in, to be present in this very simple but magical moment. We continued to sway, and I closed my eyes to block out all other senses. I felt his hands on my back, his head on my shoulder, and the weight of his body. Although he stood at almost 6 feet tall and weighed 160 pounds, at this moment he was weightless. He felt like he did when he was an infant, safe and happy in my arms. I pushed the world away and thought only of this moment. I breathed one big inhalation and smelled his hair. My thought was that this man, this boy, this babe will always be my baby. I wanted this moment to last forever. We continued swaying, even changing the rhythm at times. My mood was completely changed. I felt gratitude wash over me. I felt the connection between mother and son. I was close to tears, but before they fell, he released me. Thank you for the dance, my son. So Kian is my youngest. He's soon to be 20. My daughter, Manisha, is 21. She's my oldest. Oftentimes people think when you have a special needs child that you give all your attention to your special needs child. And I'm very conscious of that. And so I work very hard to pour into Manisha as well, because my greatest pride is being a mom. My daughter is the epitome of grace. She has grown up alongside of a brother who needs a lot of our attention on a day-to-day basis. He has never been able to play with her, share with her, or support her. He has always kind of just been there, taking up space, and it is she who has always done for him. Manisha's innate grace has made it so that she accepts her brother for who he is. She understands that as a family, we are a team and we have to be there for each other. Manisha has always been sensitive to my emotions. She's been a constant support for me and for all of us. As she said in the slam poem, I care that my parents will never hear their son say, I love you, so I repeat it more than I mean it to spare their pain. She is that person, empathetic, nurturing, intelligent, funny, and independent. Manisha is one of the best human beings that I know, and to call her daughter is an honor and a privilege. Raising both a neurotypical and a neurodivergent child in tandem is a very delicate dance. We risk messing up because of all the time, energy, and care that is given to our special needs child. This can potentially lead to low self-esteem or low self-worth in the other child. Feelings of inadequacy or not being good enough are at a higher risk. I've been hyper aware of these things, and and so I have worked extra hard to ensure Manisha's overall well-being. Dear Manisha, because of you, I have always strived to be the best that I can be, desperately wanting to be the mom you deserve. It is a misconception that I created SOS solely for your brother. In fact, I did it for you too. I wanted to show you that albeit life is hard, we can always dream, think outside the box, and move towards our goals. Life is a gift that should be lived to the fullest, even when things don't go according to plan. You, my dear daughter, are the best of both your papa and me. Intelligent, empathetic, sarcastic, defiant, adventurous, and fearless. As a young adult, you have shouldered me through some rough patches, reminding me that it is okay to be vulnerable and to lean on you. You remind me that all the things I want for you, I should want for myself too. The freedom to live life unapologetically. I want you to go out and live the biggest and fullest life you can. You mean the world to me. You are my light in the darkness. You make me brave, and it is because of you that I found the courage to write this book. Thank you will never be enough for all the gifts you have given me. With all my love, Mama Bear.
Thank you, Audrey.
A whole other book that's not here. And that's just me some days going, you know, I'm really tired. And I knew it wasn't going to go in the book, but I needed that. That's how my writing actually started, was answering the question, why do I think I'm not good enough? And I'll share this with you. So I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough, blah, 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 all the things, all the negative self-talk I had. Now, the way I speak to my daughter, if my daughter Manisha came to me and said, Mommy, I want to write a book, but I can't because I'm not smart enough, and all the reasons that I was telling myself, she would be repeating to me. Wow, would I have the answers for her like this? So I said, okay, treat yourself as though you're talking to Manisha. Why am I not smart enough? Where does that come from? Well, obviously I'm smart enough. I have a university degree. I started a charitable organization from nothing. I'm telling you, I didn't even have $5, and it's still going on today. A very successful organization. So does that not prove that I am intelligent? Yes. Oh, Manisha, what do you mean you're not good enough? You're loved, you're this, you're that. And then unfortunately, all the childhood trauma unraveled. It wasn't it was the stories I had been told. You're not. And so it's not true. I am good enough. And then when you look at the people who really love you, not the story you've been telling yourself of who you are, but when you look around you, then I was like, oh, my husband really loves me. I mean, I've known him since I was 15. My children, they adore me. I adore them. I can't even tell you how I had to get that out first. So on part 3, the book is actually about a spiritual awakening for me.
I think the way that you say this, Amina, is really beautiful. Putting my life into words, right? Putting the things that we experience day to day. And that's one of the things I love about your book, Audrey, is those moments of every day that we don't always get to write down or get to feel. We can feel them in your writing.
And another thing too is I've been in therapy for many, many years in my life. I've had 4 amazing therapists. They moved away and stuff. I loved all my therapists, but one of them, I love her so much, and she read it and she's like, I thought I knew, but I didn't know. I didn't know your life. And then she was like amazed. She was like, wow, if it helped one person, it really has to be enough to help another human being. And ironically, it probably helped me more than anybody who read it.
For those that are working on their own books, which is, I think, this is one from John Steinbeck. He says, abandon the idea that you're ever going to finish, controversial, lose track of the 400 pages and just write 1 page for each day. Then when it gets finished, you are always surprised. And then this is another one that I really like from Anne Lamott, who writes Bird by Bird. She's an amazing author and writer about writing. She says, the only way I can get anything written at all is to write really, really shitty first drafts. And from an award-winning author like herself. And there is this stat. My theory on it is that a lot of the gap here is in the steps that come. There's writing, and then there's the finishing the writing and moving to a book. The way I think of it is there's an idea, and then there's a book, and then there's kind of this black box in between. So the first part is usually obvious to most folks. So there's writing, there's research, there's interviews if you're doing a book about other folks. So the next piece was editing and revising. Audrey might want to speak to that in a second, because she's went through that process of editing with having an experienced editor who is able to kind of come in and give you some feedback. Design and layout, so having someone who can lay it out and design it to make it look like a so-called real book. And then there's the printing and publishing, and that's getting it both printed and bound and then getting it out there into the world if you so choose. There is a webinar coming up in October called Getting Unstuck, Finish Your Life Story or Family History. It's on the 17th, and it's kind of going into a bit more of the detail on getting from content to book. So if you're interested, you could join us. There's an Eventbrite registration, or you can just email me. You can also follow Audrey at Audrey Burt Saha, Next Gen Story. You can also follow us, and of course you can get a copy of the book. I'll send the link to the book again. It was in the description of this event. At your local bookstore, you can order it, or you can get it on Amazon. But anyway, that's a process of going from here's an idea of what I might have to here's a finished book that's out there on Amazon, like you've done, Audrey, is no small journey. And the first hurdle is that first draft, which I think a few of you are getting towards. And then the next sort of set of hurdles are getting, the book polished and ready to go.
Honestly, without Malie, the book would still not be in the world. I could not have done it without her and her guidance, editing, and the publishing, like everything, because that is not the hat I wear. Malie and I often talk about our strengths and our weaknesses. And as an entrepreneur, as a writer, you can't be everything all the time. So focus in on what's important to you, and, let someone like Malie help you do the rest.
Maybe we'll do a round of applause to finish for Audrey. So
No.
round of applause, Audrey.
Thank you for listening to me today. I appreciate it. Thanks, Malie, for asking me to come and do this. It was a pleasure. And I wish you all well on your journey to becoming the authors you are meant to be.